Have you ever felt that little knot of anxiety in your stomach when you think about your job? That quiet, nagging fear that the skills you spent your entire career building might just not matter in a few years?
It's a very real feeling.
It has a name, apparently. FOBO. The fear of being obsolete. And it's not paranoia. The ground really is shifting under our feet.
It absolutely is. And the key word there is shifting. It implies a speed and acceleration that most people are finding it really difficult to get their heads around.
Welcome to Unspoken Rules, the deep dive where we unpack the hidden truths of life. And today's unspoken rule is that the future isn't just coming, it's already here. And the worst thing you can do is freeze.
You've hit the nail on the head. Freezing is the absolute worst response. Because when we look at the data, at the real-world deployments, the message is unequivocal. AI is moving faster than almost anyone predicted.
So when you say faster, how fast are we really talking here? Can you put that into perspective for us?
Okay, think about the internet. The consumer internet, it existed in the mid-'80s, but it wasn't really useful, not effortlessly useful, until around the year 2000 when search engines got good.
Right. That was a good 15-year ramp-up period.
A 15-year gestation period to hit mass utility. Generative AI is on that same track, but the timeline is compressed into maybe 3 to 5 years. The maturity we all thought was coming in 2030 is showing up in 2026.
Wow.
So that means our human response has to accelerate right alongside it. And that's our mission for this deep dive. To synthesize the hard data on AI deployment, the very real ethical risks, and most importantly, the human skills you need to thrive in all this.
That sets the stage perfectly, because that's the core conflict, isn't it? This tension between companies rushing to adopt AI for these huge efficiency gains and the absolute non-negotiable demand for it to be responsible and secure and ethical. Everyone wants the speed, but nobody wants the fallout.
And balancing that, that requires a fanatical focus on the skills AI can't replicate. Empathy, real creativity, critical thinking.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the sheer scale of what's happening on the commercial side.
Right. So let's anchor this with a timeline. The year 2026. This is the pivot point. For the last few years, it's all been about experiments, proofs of concept, prototypes.
Playing in the sandbox.
Exactly, playing in the sandbox. But 2026 is when we move from the sandbox to full mission-critical production. And that's not just an upgrade. It's a complete architectural overhaul.
What's forcing that big of a redesign? Why can't they just scale up what they have?
Because once these apps hit millions of real users and they're driving actual revenue, a different set of rules kicks in. Latency, cost per query. A 5-second delay on a prototype is fine. A 5-second delay that costs you millions in lost sales? Not so fine.
So the infrastructure has to become, what, AI native?
That's the term, AI native. Your data systems can't just be passive storage anymore. They have to be active enablers of, instant intelligent decisions.
And the investment numbers we're seeing, they back this up completely. Something like 92% of companies are planning to increase their AI spend. That's basically everyone.
It is. It's a massive existential bet on the technology. But here's the paradox in that investment.
Okay.
While almost everyone is pouring money into AI, only about 1% of leaders say their companies are actually mature in deploying it.
Only 1%. Wow. So what does mature even mean in this context?
Maturity isn't just, buying a license. It means AI is seamlessly woven into your core business. It's not a side project. And more importantly, it's driving real measurable outcomes, big revenue increases.
So there's this huge gap between intention and an actual effective reality.
A yawning chasm. And it just highlights how incredibly complex it is to do this right, to integrate AI effectively, securely, and at scale.
Which is why the stories from that 1% are so vital. They show the massive ROI that's possible. Let's talk about some of those commercial applications. The automation imperative. Personalization has to be first. Right.
That's the most visible one, for sure. The streaming giants are the masters here. Think about Netflix or Spotify. They're not just using AI as a gimmick. It's a core utility.
It goes way beyond people who watch this also watch that.
Oh, way beyond. These engines are analyzing granular data points, what you watch, when you watch, how fast you bail on a show, your secret love for a specific niche genre, all of it. They build these incredibly detailed personal profiles.
Then the payoff for them, what's the business outcome?
It's fundamental to their entire model. It leads to massively increased engagement, longer watch times, and the big one, higher subscription retention.
Right. If they're always feeding you something you'll probably like, you have no reason to cancel.
It becomes a nonstop dopamine drip, basically. It's optimized to keep you there and prevent churn.
And we see that same kind of huge financial impact in a totally different space.
Yeah.
High-stakes finance, where it's less about making money and more about not losing it.
Exactly. The security side. You have firms like American Express, HSBC. They've built these incredibly sophisticated machine learning models to analyze transaction data in real time.
Millions of data points a second, right? Geography, transaction size?
Merchant type, your own historical patterns, everything. The model builds this deeply complex picture of what's normal for you.
So how does it actually spot the fraud any faster than a person could?
It's the deviation. When a transaction happens that's even slightly outside that learned pattern, say a huge purchase in a new country right after a small one at your local coffee shop, it gets flagged instantly.
And because it's always learning, it can spot new patterns, new threats before they become widespread.
Proactively. It minimizes losses that could be in the billions, and it builds enormous customer trust because the alerts are so timely and accurate.
Okay, and for pure operational efficiency, that JP Morgan Coin tool is still just a mind-blowing example.
Coin is the perfect case study for natural language processing, NLP, at scale. I mean, historically analyzing legal documents, especially something like a mortgage agreement.
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's painstaking, it's slow, and humans make mistakes.
A lot of mistakes. So Kuayin used NLP. The AI was trained to read and understand all that dense legalese. It identifies specific clauses, pulls out key data points.
And the result wasn't just a small improvement.
It was a dramatic reduction.
Yeah.
We're talking about work that took hundreds of thousands of human hours being done in seconds. And it was more accurate.
Yeah.
It's a prime example of taking that repetitive, high-stakes work and just handing it over to robust automation.
And that's kind of the baseline now. But the next wave is where it gets really interesting. We're talking about reasoning and agency. AI moving beyond just processing information.
Yes, exactly. Reasoning is a huge cognitive leap. It means the models are moving past just comprehending and generating output. They're making complex decisions.
What does that look like?
It looks like an AI that can see a current situation, define a goal, look at the resources it has, and then create a logical step-by-step plan to get there. It's delivering genuinely actionable insights, not just well-written summaries.
Which leads us straight into agentic AI. This is the part that still sounds a bit like science fiction.
It's becoming real-world utility fast. We're seeing systems that have true agency. And to be clear, we're not just talking about a fancy chatbot.
Right.
These are autonomous AI agents. They can adapt to context, they can make better decisions by pulling in data from a whole range of different tools, and they can take independent actions toward a goal with very little human handholding.
Can you give us a big picture example? An agentic system tackling a major global issue.
A really powerful one is Climate GPT. It's a large language model built specifically for climate science, environmental data, policy.
So it's a domain-specific expert.
A super expert. Its agency lets it constantly ingest new data satellite images, policy changes, whatever, and adapt its own internal models on the fly. This makes critical climate insights available to everyone, especially low-income nations, and it helps them plan for things like humanitarian aid or agricultural changes. It's not just predicting, it's providing actionable steps.
To really get a handle on this power, though, we have to look beyond the corporate world and into these high-stakes environments. Defense, public security. The data we reviewed had two really critical examples of this. Let's start with defense. Tell us about Operation Spiderweb.
Okay. Operation Spiderweb was a Ukrainian AI-powered drone campaign back in May of 2025. The challenge was immense. They needed to strike high-value Russian military assets, specifically aircraft on heavily fortified bases.
Places where sending in a human pilot would be out of the question.
Too risky. And critically, in places where the signal connections were being jammed by advanced electronic warfare.
So the human controller is effectively blind. They're cut off.
Completely cut off. The solution was to use AI-enabled drones that had computer vision and reasoning capabilities built right in, on board.
So they weren't being flown by a joystick.
They were deployed with a mission goal. The AI on the drone handled everything else autonomously. Navigation, avoiding obstacles, recognizing the right target, and executing the strike. Even with the signal jamming, the AI kept its agency and finished the mission.
And the result?
The outcome was staggering. The campaign resulted in the destruction or disabling of 41 Russian military aircraft.
41. We're talking about an autonomous agent making final decisions in a jammed environment. That raises so many questions about oversight. How is that different from a remotely controlled system?
The difference is latency and adaptability. A remote human operator is limited by the speed of light, the reliability of the signal. If that signal is jammed, the mission is over.
Right.
An agentic system, once it's launched, is making millisecond decisions based on its programming and its sensors. So oversight moves away from moment-to-moment control and becomes about governance, about design. You have to ensure the initial rules of engagement, the ethical guardrails, are absolutely flawless, because once it's out there, human intervention is pretty much impossible.
It's a complete shift in the definition of command and control.
A fundamental one.
Now let's pivot that to public security. Different stakes, but just as high. Keeping global travel points running smoothly and safely.
Right. The EU's rollout of their smart border AI systems in 2025. This was across 12 major entry points, and it shows a different kind of complexity. It wasn't just about automating passport scans.
What else was it doing?
It was a complex blend of tech, high-res facial recognition, super-fast biometric scanning, and even deep behavioral analysis, looking at how people walk, how they interact, signs of stress, and it fed all of that into predictive risk models.
You'd think all that processing would slow things down, not speed them up.
But that's the power of the computation. By processing all of that simultaneously, it can clear the vast majority of low-risk people almost instantly. That frees up the human agents to focus only on the handful of cases that get flagged as high risk.
And did it work?
The impact was huge. They cut the average wait times at these crossings by 60%. And they detected over 3,000 high-risk travelers during the pilot phase, using those behavioral flags. It's a case of using AI to streamline security without compromising it, assuming you have the right governance in place.
That need for governance, for control. That brings us right to infrastructure, this trend toward wanting total control over your own data.
Exactly. The more critical the application is, defense, finance, healthcare, the more you see this drive for what's called sovereign AI.
Sovereign AI, what does that actually mean architecturally? The trend for the last decade has been to just put everything in the cloud.
Sovereign AI is the strategic pivot away from that. It's moving away from relying on public APIs from the big cloud providers for your core AI functions. It means organizations are deploying their AI workloads entirely on premises or in these highly controlled private clouds.
And that's an incredibly expensive and complicated move. Why are they doing it? What's the payoff?
It's all about control. First, data security. They need to ensure their most sensitive data patient records, national intelligence, never leaves their own jurisdiction. Second is model control. They want to own the intellectual property, the model weights, and prevent any leakage.
And I'm guessing compliance is the third piece.
Absolutely. In regulated industries, you have to be able to prove compliance at every single step, from data collection to deployment. And that's much harder to guarantee when you're using a third party's opaque black box API.
It's fascinating, though, how the very systems that are designed for this kind of efficiency and control can introduce these profound ethical problems if that control is lost.
Or if the system is just flawed from the beginning.
Let's flip the coin. We've seen the power. Now we have to confront the ethical shadow these systems cast.
This is the critical next step, the hidden dangers. And we have to start where surveillance capitalism meets systemic injustice, the privacy paradox and bias.
Yeah, the review we looked at was very clear that ethics has to be baked in from the start. Let's break down the privacy paradox first.
The paradox is that tension between deep personalization and our own privacy. I mean, we love our Spotify recommendations, right? They make our lives better. But that level of personalization requires the constant, granular collection of massive amounts of our personal data.
So you get a better service, but you're trading away a bit of yourself.
You're trading away intimacy and control over your digital identity. And the big question is, where's the line? At what point does helpful personalization become invasive surveillance?
And the issue of bias. That just seems to be this toxic, persistent problem, no matter the industry.
Absolutely, because if you train an AI on historical data, and that data is biased or incomplete, which most of it is, the AI just learns and then amplifies those biases.
So you end up with discriminatory outcomes in hiring or loan applications.
Or even criminal justice. And the key takeaway here for any kind of responsible AI governance is that accountability has to be end-to-end. You can't just check the final output. You have to audit the data coming in, the model training, the system behavior, the whole life cycle.
Let's make this concrete. Let's look at the ethical failures that happened when health data and commercial AI collided in that NHS DeepMind case.
Right. This is a landmark case. It involved 1.6 million patient records being used to train AI algorithms for a commercial entity, DeepMind. The core failure was a fundamental violation of informed consent.
How specifically did they violate it?
The consent form was just incredibly vague. It said patient data may be used for research. It just lumped commercial use into this broad, general category. Patients had no idea their personal medical records were being used to develop a for-profit application.
And it wasn't just the consent. The data security itself was a huge problem, right? This idea that just anonymizing data is enough.
It's not nearly enough. The data was de-identified, so they removed names and addresses. But research proved you could re-identify 15% of the patients just by combining the timestamps of their medical events with other public data.
Wow. So the lesson for you, the listener, is that privacy isn't just about deleting a name, it's about how data can be fused together.
Exactly. Security is compromised by combining seemingly harmless data points that, when you run them through a powerful algorithm, suddenly point right back to an individual.
And this came up again with 23andMe, right? When they partnered with a big pharmaceutical company.
Same public concern. The scientific potential was massive, but it raised immediate flags about personal genetic information being used for commercial profit without a separate, very explicit ethical consent.
And still in the world of drug development, there's a hard algorithmic risk that AI just can't solve yet, a biological barrier.
This is so critical because it moves beyond data ethics into the real limitations of scientific modeling. AI simulations are standard now in drug R&D, but they are hitting a wall, and that wall is the inherent physiological differences between the animal models they use for testing and actual human beings.
So why should someone who isn't a biologist care about, say, a chicken's body temperature?
Because it shows that AI is only as good as the model it's fed. And if that biological model is flawed, automation just makes you get the wrong answer faster. For instance, the research noted a chicken's core body temperature is about 29-30 degrees C. A human is 37 degrees C. That gap completely changes how key drug-metabolizing enzymes work.
So even the best AI simulation can't predict a human reaction if the animal model it's based on is just biologically different.
It can't. Another example was a specific liver enzyme in rodents that's only 1/10 as active as in humans. So a drug that seems perfectly safe in animal tests could be highly toxic to a person. These are biological barriers that AI cannot just simulate its way around. It's a huge cautionary tale.
Let's shift to a more abstract risk now. The risk of deception and trust that's inherent in these large language models. We know that the way an AI writes, the style and fluency, has a huge impact on whether we believe it or not.
Right. It can sound incredibly trustworthy, incredibly confident, even when it has no actual experience or grasp of reality.
And that leads directly to something called the truth bias.
It does. We know humans are terrible lie detectors. Our accuracy is basically a coin toss. But the research we looked at found that AI agents have a substantially greater truth bias than we do. They judge information to be true at rates between 67% and a staggering 99%.
That feels wrong. Why would a machine built on logic be more biased toward truth than a human?
Because you have to remember what an LLM is trained to do. It's not trained on truth. It's trained on linguistic plausibility. Its goal is to produce the next most statistically likely word in a sentence based on all the text it's read.
So when it hallucinates and just makes something up, it's because the sentence pattern is plausible even if the facts are completely wrong.
Precisely. The system rewards fluency and consistency with its training data, not with external reality. So if the AI is judging almost everything as true, it means it's inherently terrible at verification.
And that's a massive risk in fields like medicine or law or finance.
A huge risk. The more complex the task, the more dangerous these confident-sounding inaccuracies become.
Which is the perfect bridge to our next and maybe most immediate anxiety, employment. The grief people are feeling for the careers they thought were safe. It's absolutely valid.
It is. And the disruption is accelerating. We're not talking about slow, long-term shifts anymore. The data is stark. AI could eliminate 56% of entry-level jobs within 5 years. And 86% of executives are actively planning to replace those entry-level creation and data gathering roles with AI. That's a massive, rapid displacement.
And this creates what's been called the K-shaped AI economy. What does that mean?
A K-shaped trajectory is when one part of the economy shoots upward, while another part stagnates or falls sharply. In the AI world, companies and individuals who embrace the technology, who integrate it and upskill, they surge ahead. That's the top arm of the K.
In the bottom arm.
Those who resist, or whose jobs are purely repetitive and automatable, they risk becoming professionally obsolete. It creates this deep stratification where access to AI tools and training becomes a primary driver of inequality.
But there's a paradox here I want to dig into. If AI gets rid of 56% of those entry-level jobs, the drafting, the data gathering, where do new hires get the foundational experience they need to do the more advanced review and refinement work?
That is the single most profound challenge facing education and corporate training right now.
You can't review a legal contract if you've never drafted one.
The old model of a multi-year apprenticeship, learning by doing the grunt work, is fundamentally over. The new reality demands a massive task shift. The job of a new hire changes completely from day one.
So how do they get that experience?
Their job immediately becomes about strategic thinking. They learn not by creating the first draft, but by doing a sophisticated high-level review of the AI's draft. They're auditing it for legal exposure, checking for hallucinations, aligning it with strategic goals. The learning curve is accelerated, but it demands a totally different skill set right out of the gate.
So the goal isn't just to work harder, it's to redefine the job itself.
Absolutely. You have to ruthlessly identify what parts of your role can be automated so you can free up your human energy for the high-value work that can't be. Upskilling is critical, but the real edge is focusing on emotional intelligence, ethical oversight, the uniquely human stuff.
Which brings us perfectly to the solution, the human firewalls. If AI is automating logic and speed, what becomes irreplaceable? Our sources all point to emotional intelligence, creativity, and critical thinking. Let's start with EQ.
Right. And EQ is so much more than just being nice. It's the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, self-awareness, self-regulation, while also being able to read and navigate the emotions of others. Empathy, relationship management.
And in a world driven by data, why is that so critical for leaders?
Because it's what builds trust. It's what allows a leader to move beyond just commanding effectively, which an AI might be able to optimize to, inspiring effectively, which is purely human. A leader with high EQ can navigate a crisis calmly and use empathy to keep their team unified.
You also mentioned that EQ cultivates something often overlooked, hope.
Yes. Hope as a dynamic part of EQ is what gives a team resilience during these high-pressure transformations. When there's a setback, and there will be hope, is what allows a team to see it as a learning opportunity, not a permanent failure.
It's the psychological shock absorber.
It is. And it also just reduces day-to-day conflict. It encourages active listening, understanding where the other person is coming from emotionally. It shifts the workplace from being purely transactional to being fundamentally relational.
Okay, next up, creativity. With Gen AI churning out endless images and text, people are worried it's replacing the creative spirit itself.
But the sources are clear on this. AI is the helper, not the sole agent. That's the essential distinction.
So if we break down the creative process, problem identification, idea generation, evaluation, and implementation, where does AI fit in?
It's fantastic at the middle, too. Idea generation and evaluation. It can act like a tireless brainstorming partner, scanning vast data sets to generate hundreds of novel combinations or different ways to frame a problem.
So it does the heavy lifting of ideation, but the human element is still what brings the originality and the soul.
Exactly. Let's compare their strengths. AI is a master synthesizer. It can combine existing ideas from its training data. But humans draw from lived experience, from imagination, emotion, cultural nuance. We bring the ethical filter, the emotional context, the deep understanding of why something matters.
And AI can generate 1,000 designs for a product.
But the human designer is one who asks, is this accessible? Is it harmful? Does this actually align with our brand's purpose? That ability to frame the problem and apply an ethical and emotional filter, that's true originality? An algorithm can't do that.
Which brings us to the most crucial skill of all in this new era, critical thinking. If AI has a truth bias and can be confidently wrong, critical thinking is the essential human firewall.
It's the difference between blindly following a computer's instruction and verifying that the instruction is ethical, fair, and strategically sound. It's about asking the hard questions AI can't ask itself. Who is excluded by this model? What if the data is wrong?
It's demanding accountability from the machine.
It is. And it's also what drives real innovation. It's about asking what if and why not. The moment we stop critically evaluating AI's output is the moment we surrender our strategic clarity to automated mediocrity.
Let's get practical. Our sources gave us some specific techniques you can use to boost your CT skills. Let's start with a classic, the 5 whys.
Right, this came from the founder of Toyota. It's for getting to the root cause of a problem. It's deceptively simple. You just state the problem and then ask why 5 times, digging deeper with each answer.
Can you give us a quick example?
Sure. Problem. The AI chatbot gave a customer the wrong price. 1. Why? It pulled outdated data. 2. Why? The data pipeline was pointed at an old database. 3. Why? The team who decommissioned that database forgot to update the API call. 4. Why? That team didn't have a good cross-departmental checklist. 5. Why? The organization values speed over robust verification.
So the root cause isn't the chatbot at all. It's an organizational process failure.
Exactly. It shifts you from just blaming the tech to active systemic learning.
Okay, then there's the ladder of inference.
This one is great for checking your own assumptions. It's a model that shows how we climb from observable fact to selecting some of those facts, adding meaning, making assumptions, and then forming beliefs that drive our actions.
So it helps you trace back where your own thinking might have gone off the rails.
It forces you to climb back down the ladder and check your work. Are my conclusions based on verifiable reality or on unexamined biases?
And for a more intermediate technique, inversion.
Inversion is fantastic for risk assessment. Instead of asking, how do I succeed? You flip it and ask, what would guarantee catastrophic failure?
You seem backwards.
You deliberately plan for the worst-case scenario. If you want to launch a successful product, you list all the ways you could make it fail. Then you build systems to prevent those things from happening. It's incredibly effective at finding blind spots.
So let's apply these skills to a real-world business function, customer service. We know chatbots are saving businesses billions by handling routine tasks.
But speed is not service. Not when the emotional stakes are high. When a customer is dealing with a serious billing error or a critical product failure, automation just falls short.
In that moment of frustration, they need a human. They need empathy.
They need to feel heard and that someone is taking ownership.
So the challenge is humanizing AI. How do you get the speed and scale of automation without losing that human connection?
It comes down to intentional system design, specifically the handoff. The system has to be smart enough to detect frustration or complexity and seamlessly transfer the conversation to a human agent without making the customer repeat themselves.
And how do you make sure the AI gets better over time? That's where the robust feedback loops come in.
Absolutely. The AI has to learn from human experience. This includes simple customer readings, a thumbs up or down. It includes agent corrections, where a human agent who takes over can formally correct the AI's bad answer so it doesn't make that mistake again.
And I'm guessing trend analysis, looking at the big picture.
Yes, looking at recurring issues, what keywords trigger frustration. This highlights where the AI's core model needs to be retrained or reinforced. It ensures the AI stays sharp and emotionally resonant by constantly learning from human judgment.
If we connect all of this to the bigger picture, it's clear the future belongs to organizations that can blend that human insight with machine efficiency. Which brings us to the ultimate strategy, achieving superagency.
Superagency. It's a great concept from Reid Hoffman. It's a state where you, as an individual, are empowered by AI to supercharge your creativity, your productivity, your impact, far beyond what was ever possible before. AI is the ultimate super tool.
And this completely changes what it means to be an employee, especially a new one just entering the workforce. The whole employee profile is evolving.
Dramatically. Entry-level work used to be about creation, writing the basic code, drafting the first report. Now, new hires are shifting immediately from creation to review and refinement of what the AI produces. 64% of leaders expect this shift in the next 3 years.
That's staggering. New hires are essentially skipping the apprenticeship and jumping straight to high-level work.
They are. They're expected to engage in strategic thinking and AI-powered decision-making from day one. It raises the bar for what it means to be competent.
So for you, the listener, what are employers looking for now? What skills matter most?
Beyond basic AI literacy, it's overwhelmingly the soft skills. 69% of executives are prioritizing them. We're talking analytical thinking, creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, leadership. These are the human capabilities that let you effectively drive the AI super tool.
So what's the individual strategy for you to get on the right side of that K-shaped curve?
First, you have to accept that the traditional linear career path is over. This era demands constant reinvention. You have to think in terms of a portfolio career where you are always learning and adapting.
And that learning can't wait for a formal training program.
Lifelong learning is non-negotiable. You have to be experimenting with AI tools yourself, staying current. The EU AI Act even requires employers to ensure AI literacy, so training will be more available, but the drive has to come from you.
And finally, the advice is to stay grounded. Don't just chase the next shiny thing.
Exactly. Invest your learning time in the skills that are truly durable. Emotional intelligence, ethical oversight, systems thinking, the cognitive and relational skills that provide true professional resilience.
Okay, let's look at the organizational imperatives. Leaders have to do more than just delegate this transformation.
They have to lead it. And the fundamental principle has to be that AI serves human development, not the other way around. They have to avoid the trap of automating without reflection, of optimizing without empathy.
And adopting that super agency mindset means reframing the whole conversation around displacement.
It's a philosophical shift.
Yeah.
You stop asking the fear-based question, how can AI do our current jobs faster? And you start asking the future-based question, how can AI help us discover what we should be doing instead?
Which turns potential job loss into an opportunity for human flourishing and new growth.
And that leads to the default operating model of the future, hybrid teams.
Human and AI collaboration as the norm.
It's already becoming the norm. The winning organizations are designing workflows that leverage the unique strengths of each. AI for speed and data, humans for context, ethics, and emotional intelligence. By 2027, half of companies using Gen AI will likely launch agentic AI that can do complex work with limited oversight, which just doubles down on the need for strong human governance.
So our deep dive is complete. We've looked at the reality of the AI tsunami, we've navigated its ethical shadows, and we've armed ourselves with the non-negotiable human skills of EQ, creativity, and critical thinking. The final takeaway for you is that the future is relational, not just transactional. Your greatest advantage will always be your humanity.
And that leads to one final provocative thought. We know that organizations that encourage debate, that encourage peer review and constant learning, they create cultures where AI is used more responsibly and more effectively. It leads to better outcomes. So if AI is really just a mirror reflecting our own biases and flaws back at us, then the final question isn't whether AI can do the work. We know it can. The essential question is, who do we want to be in an AI-powered world?
And the final unspoken rule of this deep dive is that you can't leave without leaving a mark. So make your mark down in the comments. What's the one human skill you're going to double down on? Hit that bell because the unspoken rules of tomorrow are being written today and you don't want to miss them. And of course, subscribe because the best rules are always the ones we uncover together.